Before I do, I want to give a brief bio. It's pretty extensive, so bear with me. It's impressive on top of that. So our guest speaker tonight, his name is Cal Neff. He started running at the age of 4 running at the age of 4 at the 1988 Cajun Cup 1K. 4 years old. Originally born in Aberdeen, Scotland, to Canadian parents, Cal grew up all over the world, moving to England, Thailand, Australia, back and forth with the US and Canada to his current location in the Houston area, where he operates and trains program, hard loop endurance, and race directing the trail racing over Texas events. Pretty impressive. Cal has 3 girls who's helped him define his running career after a series of Guinness World Record, pushing them in a stroller. I'm going to list those as we go on. That's impressive in itself. He's a diverse runner competing in all distances, on all terrains in a single year, from speed on the track to grueling trails, in the mountains and everyone in between. Cal's main focus and area he currently excels in on the roads for distance from 5K to 100K. So top performances include Canadian national record in the 50K at 2 hours and 51 minutes. Pacing Kirta D'Amato at the U.S. national record at the Houston Marathon at 2 hours and 19 minutes. Back-to-back up and down Comrades Marathons. 16th place at the World 50K Road Championships. Winning the Woodlands and the Silos Marathons. Competing for the Team Canada at multiple Mountain Ultra Trail World Championships. And here's the other part of the stroller I mentioned earlier. The record for the stroller record of 31 minutes 41 seconds in 10K, 1 hour 11 minutes in half marathon, 2 hours and 31 minutes in a marathon. That's unbelievable. So Cal's been sponsored by Ultra since 2014 and works with several other brands that he trusts. He and his team, a team of coaches with hard loop endurance, are available for training of any level of athlete in all disciplines of running and triathlon. And finally, the trail racing over Texas events offer a range of beginningly friendly off-road runs in the Houston area throughout the year. So with that said, I'd like to welcome Cal Neff.
Wow, thank you very much. I don't know who you were talking about there. And you've done my whole talk for me, so perfect. Wow, yeah, it seems like just yesterday I was standing at a very similar podium for the 2024 Houston Marathon and stated a very ambitious goal of 2:19 and was worried about it, honestly. Was a little apprehensive, and so it's totally normal. Anybody here just a little unsure about Sunday? Yeah? Yeah, see?
I'm sure I won't run 2:19.
Remember what you just said at mile 1, because we have a weird way of convincing ourselves otherwise sometimes. But yeah, any first-time marathon or half marathon in the room tonight? Okay, great. Congrats. Houston was my very first marathon as well. I had run 125 kilometers before that, but it was my first marathon, officially. I've done 22 marathons. It was kind of fun to reflect, and I know we just kind of went through my bio, but I was reflecting on some of my results. I've averaged for my top 10 at 2:21, and that included a very, very hot and humid Chicago and 2 Bostons, which are not the easiest of courses, but Boston can be quick if you get it right. We went through the stroller and the 50Ks and everything and pacing. Actually got to talk to Kirta D'Amato today. So 3 years ago this weekend, I paced her to 2:19 when she PR'd and broke a very long-standing American record. And I'm going to get into how that kind of unlocked very much a mental game in the marathon for me, something that I've learned just from pacing her and kind of what that mentality put me into and how I've been able to advance my own marathoning. So you kind of wonder, like, okay, what can I learn from a guy that it only takes literally just over 2 hours to run the marathon. I'm playing a very different game, right? I'm playing a time game. The miles are still there, but what can you learn? Well, as mentioned, I have run quite a few ultra marathons. Anybody chasing kind of that 6 hour in here, it's okay. Chasing the 6 hour mark, the shutdown of the roads. I've been there. I've chased the 6 hour barrier. It was at a very different race over in South Africa called the Comrades Marathon. It changes distance every year, but it's 50 to 55 miles every year. And last year I was chasing the sub 6 hour barrier, which gets you a certain accolade medal. But I've been on my feet for 13 hours and 54 minutes in a race before. So I do know what that feels like, what it goes through, the fueling it requires, the mentality. And so hopefully I can share a little bit about that. What I'm not going to share tonight, I know people are going to be very interested in my training, what I do, what shoes I wear, what do I eat, what I've been doing for workouts. Great, I'm happy to answer questions after this up here or in more in private or even after this event. You can reach out to me. The one thing I don't want to do though is put any doubt in your minds of what you've been doing is the wrong thing for Sunday, because it's a little bit too late to go and change it, right? There is really nothing that you can do from now until race day that's technically going to make you faster. As they say, like the hay's in the barn, right? There's a lot of things you can do to mess it up, right? But we're doing the right thing. We're fueling well, right? You don't have to overdo it. So a few of my tips. Fuel well, but moderation, okay? What you've been doing for your long runs, that kind of normal training routine, you've probably had some great runs, hopefully somewhere in the last 12 weeks, 6 weeks. Do that, right? Maybe add a little bit of carbohydrates, a little bit more sodium, but you don't have to go crazy. The old school way of like carbo loading and just completely filling your belly to the max every single night for the rest of this week. What happens is people show up, they feel lethargic, they feel untrained, they feel bloated, waterlogged. Carbs hold a lot of water, so you don't need to overdo it. Do what's been working for you, and we've all heard that before. Nothing new on race day, right? So that old age stays true. Stay active. I see a lot of people treat the taper week as something that would look more like my recovery week, like post-race. So the athletes that I'm working with, they had a pretty hard workout, as I did yesterday, and it's okay if you didn't, but just stay active this week, right? We still are getting on our feet. We're still running or doing some kind of cross-training. We're even spiking the nervous system with a little bit of pickups in there. Most of my athletes have something like that tomorrow or the next day. So that gives you a little bit of an example of not shutting it down, right? You've been having good long runs on the weekend, and during that week, you've probably had an interval or a tempo session and a lot of running in between. So why would you change that now, right? But you do want to limit your time on feet. I know with the excitement of Houston Marathon Week, it is really my favorite week of the year. It's easy to get out in the expo and just never leave. And you see all your friends and you see all the cool brands and the shopping and the photos and everything. And if you ever go to these like world majors now, it's like you look at your steps at the end of the day and you're well into like the 20,000 and you've basically done a marathon on your feet. And so when you wake up Sunday, you feel that. So try to get off your feet. And the biggest thing, you might hear more than once from me tonight, we've heard carbo loading. I've kind of like started coining the term sleep loading. There is nothing better for you than sleep. And, that goes not even just this week, but throughout your life. We see people that take shortcuts or run out of time in the day, and what do they take out? They take out sleep. Well, sleep, and this will be kind of my one training theory thing I'll get into, but sleep is where your body is producing a lot of hormones. And actually, a lot of if you hear elite athletes getting in trouble with doping and things, they're taking substances that your body is producing naturally, and that all happens in deep, deep sleep. So just don't forget that you just really can't beat a good night's sleep, and get as much as you can this coming weekend. So, all right. I like this quote, or basically the definition of endurance. It's by a buddy of mine, Alex Hutchinson, in his book Endure. The struggle to continue against the mounting desire to stop. The struggle to continue against the mounting desire to stop. So how do we curb that desire to stop? And I was even there today. I was on the bike a little bit. I was in a sauna and I was spinning, and I definitely wanted to stop at some point. And it's like, what is that thing in the back of our heads that's saying like, you're gonna destroy yourself? Or, what is that governor that's in you that tells you maybe this is too fast? Now, we definitely have to listen to that a little bit on race day, all right? We're not gonna run 2:19. You're not gonna beat Cal. But there is something to be said about that mental desire to stop and how to keep going. And that's, hopefully the physiological training that you've been doing, the miles and the workouts, gets you there. But what I'm really going to dive into tonight is some of the mentality behind that, because that's really something that we can learn from tonight that can help us on race day. Before I get into that, so continuing that fueling theme, hopefully you've been fueling during your runs, and you can really push that on race day. The latest, not even just the research, but just the latest in athlete performance that we're seeing. So right from the Peloton and the Tour de France, all the way to these Western States 100-milers, and in the marathon, Eliud Kipchoge breaking 2 hours in the marathon. How did that happen? How are these people getting the best of themselves? Well, it used to be this fat adaptation and running on your own fuel. But now we're seeing people pushing over 100 grams of carbs an hour. It's a lot of fuel, and you can do it. It's 3 gels in a drink. It's really not that much, but you have to practice. But we can all do a little bit of that on Sunday by making sure that you're getting a little bit of something in, as long as you can stomach it, right? But this takes practice, but I'm sure there's some Gatorade, some gels, some things that you can take on Sunday just to keep those glycogen stores topped up, because unfortunately your body just doesn't have enough of it to run a marathon physically, all right? So top up, keep that fueling going. Pacing is a big one, and I'm gonna get into how that should feel, but I like to break the race into components where that first half for sure should feel controlled, should feel like you could jump to that next group, that you could sprint ahead, but you're not going to, okay? That first mile is magic. We have the bib on, we have the lights, we have all the people, the energy. For me, really, I'm a racer. I'm not much of a trainer, but when I get into those situations, I know that runner's high is like instant from the gun, and it's very easy to get out too fast. So just try to hold back, because eventually it catches up to you, right? But if you've been controlled, if you can run, I was just talking to one of my athletes tonight, the funnest way to run a marathon is when you can finish strong. And so if you can set that race up for yourself by pacing it well early, you'll just have such a better experience at your run. It's nothing worse to drag it in. I've been there, but it doesn't even matter the time sometimes when you're flying by people at the end, passing them. The experience is what you're really getting out of it. So the mentality side. My breakthrough in pacing was with Kira D'Amato. I paced Sarah Hall. She was trying to break 2:19:36 during COVID years at the Marathon Project. She was just short of it. I was having the day of my life and unfortunately couldn't pull that athlete fast enough. And then Kira D'Amato called shortly after. Well, she direct messaged me on Instagram out of nowhere. Never knew her before. Actually found her doping control papers floating in the wind at the Marathon Project after pacing Sarah Hall. And I had direct messaged her, hey, I think these papers are kind of important. You might want to hang on to them. And so that's kind of how we connected. But she gave me like 6 weeks notice. I was literally sitting there having a glass of wine and I think ice cream. I was really in off mode there in the break season. And she said, can you pace me to break 2:19:36? And I remember when I was talking to Sarah Hall and the team there, and then Kira D'Amato, it's like, you've never done this. What makes you qualified to be the pacer to break 2:19:36? And I said, well, she's never done it either. And so I probably have just as much skin in the game as she does to want to do this. So having that reason to run is really important going into it. And sometimes, like we heard with the stroller running, when I had my children in front of me and I was sharing that experience with them, it drove me to do things that I didn't even think were possible. So have your reason. Number one, I know we have Run for the Reason, probably a lot of charity runners in here tonight as well. That just drives you to a different level of performance. So just remember those things. I'm going to talk about some of my own personal mantras. Canadian, sorry, I say A's, really weird. Mantra. But those words that you can bring up that can remind yourself mentally, but also to enact a physical response can be really important. They can be your children's names. They can be the reason you're running, something that you've been through hard that you've accomplished. Just remember those things for when it gets hard. And so when I was with Kira D'Amato, one of the things I came up with was, this is how it feels. It was a breakthrough moment for me because it kind of separated mind from body. Our bodies, both Kira and I discussed this after, were feeling awful. It was not easy. It was really hard to run 5:19 a mile, every single mile for 26.2. That was not, as you can imagine, easy. But we were doing it, and we were clicking it off one by one, and I was just like, maybe this is how it feels to run fast. This is how it feels to break the American record. This is how it feels to break my own personal best. And it really separated that mind-body, and it allowed me to come back to the moment. And I always tell my athletes this, the moment. It's important to come back wherever you are because our minds are so bad at playing out the bad movie, of forecasting doom, that I feel this bad right now. In a mile, I'm going to feel exponentially worse, and in 10 miles, I'm going to not even be able to move, right? Those movies start playing out. Imagine that in your head. You're at mile 10 and you just can't even fathom what mile 20 is going to feel like. Don't do that. Hit the pause button right there. You got to stop those things from happening in your mind, because often they don't play out that way. Every mile is a new mile. If you've ever done an ultra, I know we got some seasoned 100-miler runners in here, and they'll tell you it's a life in a day, and the marathon's the same way. You go through each mile has its own energy. Sometimes you're relying on the people next to you, and hopefully on Sunday, like Kira had with me as a pacer, hopefully you have some camaraderie there. It really does help to have other people. So use that to your advantage, and then maybe when they're down and having their little mile of pity, you can be there for them to be strong. All right? So it's amazing what other people will do for you. So be process focused. I know we all have these big goals and dreams and times and qualifiers and things that we want to hit, but when you look at sports psychology and athletes breaking through in performance, what it shows is that they're not focused on the goal in the moment of their event, whatever they're doing. So being process focused sometimes means left, right. Honestly, it can get that monotonous. Take your gel at whatever X time you need to. Grab a water, run this tangent line, help this person. Come back to the moment of where you are. If you need a word, use a mantra that'll kind of bring you back to the moment. Staying in the moment on the process is what's going to get you. And before you know it, another mile's gone. And before you know it, another mile's gone. These are things that I do to break down the race. We call it chunking in sports psychology. You chunk the race down into smaller components. If there's a full pizza over there right now, I bet you if I told you to eat the whole pizza, it'd be a pretty daunting task. But if it was one piece at a time, you could probably do it, right? I could definitely do it. I'm pretty hungry right now. So focus on the slice that you're in the moment, right? And just remember, at the end of the day, you are not your result. I know we can get to these moments in races where kind of feel like maybe we're not going to be able to accomplish that big goal that we told everybody we're going to run. And you think, no, they're not going to love me after this. Well, that's not true, right? Your family probably doesn't even care. Mine have no idea, right? I'm glad somebody in this room could recognize what 219 is. Actually, I was just thinking, my buddy announced his retirement today. He was a Canadian Olympian. He ran Tokyo Olympics. I remember he was giving a talk to everybody, and he actually debuted in, what did he run in Toronto? I think he debuted in 2:16. And it was kind of this reaction. Oh, yeah, okay. And then he was like, I Boston qualified on my first marathon. And it was standing ovation. So as runners, it's we understand what times mean and what paces are. So just remember, your family's really not going to care if you run whatever time you ran. You ran a marathon, great, good job. Get back to work, right? I've been there. It's all good. So that's going to conclude. I'm going to leave a lot of room for some question and answers. I'm sure we have quite a few. But upcoming goals for me, Sunday, I've been told I'm pacing, and this is kind of crazy, but I don't know what. So I've prepped myself to run 2:19. There was the winner from 2023 from Japan. Everyone goes for Kira D'Amato's course record because you get paid a lot if you break it. And she wanted to run 2:19. She's out with injury, so I've been hearing that there's 3 Ethiopians. We actually have a pretty stellar field. I was going to go through some of that. Yeah, one thing I completely skipped over is we're all sharing the start line with some incredible people. And that's what I love about running. You know, like we're in a stadium right now where we all just look down on, gosh, this is how bad I am at sports. I don't even know how many 9 on the field? Did I get it right? Okay, 9 players per team. I'm not good at mainstream sports. I'm a runner. I just like, be a fan of the sport, okay? That's one thing you can do that will elevate your own running. Be a fan of running. Know who's gonna be there, and I'm gonna give you a rundown. Some things I'm like most excited for. Some really lucky experiences I've had at Houston Marathon specifically is I get to room with people on Saturday night. Like I don't know who it's gonna be, and one year it was Jamal Yimmer. Jamal Yimmer's from Ethiopia. When he was 20-something, he debuted in the half marathon. I think it was like 59 minutes. That was his first ever half. He's coming back. He's won it here before, Houston. I've also got to room with one of the Robertson brothers, Zane Robertson. No, not Zane, that's the bad brother, Jake. Zane got in a little bit of trouble with some doping, but his brother Jake's clean. Jake's back, really exciting. Like these are people that I got to meet. We have American record holder Weenie Kaladi. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's run, and it's kind of fun to say their half times because you don't say 1 hour in this or 2 hours this, you just say 66. So Weenie's run 66 minutes. And she's going to go after the American record in the half on the women's side. She was a 10,000 meter Olympian at Paris. Probably on the most exciting thing is the men's half marathon field. I don't know if you've been following the Olympics, but Connor Mance and Clayton Young, they were 8th and 9th at the Olympic marathon. They're coming to Houston. They're on the starting line with you. And it's probably the best shot we've ever seen at the Ryan Hall record that was set here in Houston being broken. That was I'm trying to remember, Ryan Hall 2007 ran 59:43. So it stood up a really long time. It's probably one of the oldest records we have now. But yeah, Connor Mance is probably the best chance we have. Joe Klecker's also in there, 10,000 meter Olympian. Interesting fact I found about him today was his mom, Janice Klecker, won the 92 Houston Marathon. So how cool is that? His mom won 92 and he's coming back for the half. But yeah, so what did I hear today? I looked at the women that I could be pacing. 2:23:56 is our top entrant. Actually, 2:22 is a top entrant. So I'll probably be somewhere there with them. That's kind of my next goal is pacing. What does that look like? I'm basically running the shortest line, trying to find all those curves and running the inside, just like you're on a track, but on a much bigger scale. And I just try to run 5:19, 5:19, 5:19. That's all I do. I don't do anything else. Try to avoid the Houston potholes and keep them safe. So my kind of like fatherly instincts kick in and they become my daughters for the next 2 hours and 19 minutes and just kind of take care of them on course to be a tour guide of Houston. After that, I've got 100K in 3 weeks after this weekend that I really want to do well at. If I can come top 3 at the Black Canyon 100K, I get into Western States 100. Automatic entry, golden ticket, and so that's kind of my big goal this year. If I don't get it there, I'm going to continue to bang my head against that 100K wall and go back in April. There's another one I can get a golden ticket out there. So that's kind of what I have on tap for the first half of the year. But if you ever want to follow up, I'll take some questions. But I'm the Neff Pace on Instagram and online everywhere. You can follow me there and ask questions. As was mentioned, I race direct for Trail Racing Over Texas, and we're going to give away an entry to the San Felipe Shootout, which is a really fun event. A weird format I came up with. I was like, I want to see a 5K runner, a 10K runner, and a half marathon runner all battle it out in all 3 of the events in one day. So you can do all 3 of those back to back to back. Some sick fun on the trails, right? Yeah, and then of course the coaching. I have a number of my athletes here with Hard Loop, so we're doing like our one-on-one talks and I help them kind of navigate. It's easy when everything's going well and the training's clicking, but inevitably we all wind up in these detours along the way, and so I'm their sounding board, their kind of jockey along the way to keep them on track. So thank you to them for coming tonight. I was going to tell a story. I had 4 people go to Sydney Marathon in the fall, and I was going to say one of the best things you can do for Sunday is get to the start line as healthy as you possibly can. So don't do anything silly from now until then. The 3 that I was coaching specifically for Sydney, the first one, we'll call him Brian, because that's his name, and he's sitting right over there somewhere. Sorry, Brian. He had the best training build-up ever, but through unfortunate, probably just sitting, you should be standing right now, dude, had a little flare-up, and the other 2 that had kind of crap build-ups, to be honest, and injuries along the way, that got really healthy, ended up having really good races. And Brian, who's a very accomplished athlete, just had a really hard time running in Sydney. But he's back, he's healthy, he's going to have a great day on Sunday. As is Brooke, I'll give her a shout out too. My sub-3 crew, all right. No pressure. All right, thank you for having me. Happy to answer questions. Shoot.
So, you've got all these amazing accomplishments. What's the stopping point? Is it Mount Everest?
When my wife decides we're having no more kids, and it's like, yeah.
That's the way to go.
I can't. I told myself, like, after the first and then the second record, I was like, I really can't afford the therapy bill for that one kid that's like, look, Daddy, you didn't give me a world record. Just begun.
I got a couple more.
All right, I keep them coming.
I know you said you don't talk about your diet, but one question. How much protein do you eat?
I don't know in a weight, but I'd say I definitely focus on protein intake for sure. I'm always like snacking on some kind of high protein, even like right before bed. Just getting that final dose of protein in is really quality. But I love chocolatey snacks and stuff, so I try to find like those kind of things.
I guess last one. What's kind of the biggest person you've seen running around? How tall, muscular?
Interesting. I think last year I got asked what my weight was, so I'm glad it's not about me this time. It's like, be amazed at the questions people like to get out of your personal life. But the biggest person I have seen run, I mean, I think we're in this like new age now of the, what do they call them, the hybrid athletes, right? We're seeing like Nick Barr and some of these like cross athletes that are really trying to push the marathon but also be really strong. Even Ryan Hall himself. So speaking of Ryan Hall, the guy that broke the half marathon record in 59 minutes. You look at Ryan Hall in 2007. It's a great YouTube video, by the way. If you want to see Houston, it looks like forever ago. His wife Sarah Hall's in the back of the truck commentating and watching Ryan just come through those Allen Parkway rollers. I can see it in my head, just the way his arms are down here. And he's just like this frail, weak man that ran 59 minutes. But now he's the Hulk. So when I paced Sarah Hall, he was on the sidelines as we're slowly losing the American record pace. And I swear he was going to grab a barrier and just like huck it at me. He was just like, he's a beast now. So we're getting like definitely over the 200-pound range for sub-3 marathoners. Clydesdale. Height. So interesting enough, like the East African elites that kind of rule the marathon game, they're the average 100 or like probably 5 foot something. They're pretty, compared to me at 6 feet, they're pretty short. Like on the starting line, I can see everything. It's awesome. But the one outlier that's actually like usually the world record holder is like 7 or 6.5 something feet. Like they can be quite tall.
I'm 6'4", so
yeah.
I got the advantage with speed, but I got to be really light to get that speed.
Everyone's going to be behind that guy on Sunday. Perfect. We needed a good draft horse. I like it. Great. Well, I'm going to be hanging out the rest of the night, so I look forward to catching up. Yeah?
So when you're pacing, like you said, like with the women, what is I guess the etiquette or the dynamic? Like, are you in the front, she's next to you? Like, what are the rules of pacing?
Yeah, so there are like official rules of pacing. Pacers can't come in or out of the marathon, partway through. So I have to be just a regular old guy with a bib on, earn my entry there, and I start the race with them. And I'm not allowed to mule. So in ultra running, sometimes like I'd be allowed to carry this bottle and then hand it off to my athlete, but I'm not allowed to give them anything. Now men could share amongst each other, women could share amongst each other, but I'm not allowed to like carry stuff for them. I'm literally there, I could break, like they can draft off of me. When it comes to drafting, like staying right in behind is better than actually being side by side. And if you're like NASCAR follower, it's like worse for the aerodynamics to be side by side. So either like a flying V, which if there's more pacers, like the three of us that started with Keira D'Amato actually formed kind of that flying V, or like how Kipchoge sat in the middle of a diamond. That's kind of the perfect setup. But other than that, yeah, I know the course so well. It's like back of my hand. I've done it so many times that I know the left-hand turn's coming and that we can run from the shortest distance to that next curve. And it's amazing. 1 second a mile was the difference between the record. Less than that, like 8 seconds of a mile made that difference. So yeah, we're really trying to run 26.209. So yeah. Yeah.
Have you had to come back from injury? Any advice on coming back from injury?
Yeah, coming back from injury is the question. Any advice there? So I'm a big believer in my rest days. Not get injured in the first place. Sorry, wouldn't that be nice? Rotating shoes, rest, sleep, fueling properly, and then cross training. So even though I compete in these really competitive ultra marathons, I actually don't run a really high amount of mileage for other people that would be kind of in a similar class. But I do a lot of cross training. I love the bike. Removing that impact is huge. Impact is the name of the game when it comes to running as far as injuries go. I really work on hip and mobility and strength. So I have a set of drills and things that I'm always going through. One injury I suffered, I was hit by an F-150 4 years ago, I think, on Peak Road in Katy, and did the Heisman Trophy up on the hood, and it fractured the fibula head. That was in like right around Thanksgiving time, so November, and that was the 1 year I had to miss Houston. It actually gave me a really cool opportunity to sit in the media truck, help with the commentating and following the race. And they put me in the studio that year. So on Sunday night when you get home and you're just resting up, I'll actually have continued that for now like the last 5 years. I'll be at ABC 13 doing the recap show, and they'll show lots of videos of people finishing and their stories, so check that out. But I got immediately with a fractured fibula head onto like an elliptical cross trainer and was able to win the Woodlands in March after breaking my leg in late November. So I often work harder when I'm injured, and I find a way to get the aerobic fitness in and avoid the impact. Yeah. All right, here we go. Now we're rocking. Love it. Let's go first there and then you, okay? All right. My favorite energy gel, big believer right now in a brand called Never Second. And so I use both their drink, which is a carbohydrate electrolyte mix, and then their gels that are an isotope. So if you've seen the larger ones like Science and Sport and Never Second, they actually are pre-mixed with hydration. So you don't really have that really gooey mess, and it's not like locking up your stomach. All the athletes that have switched over to that are really having their best performances on it. You can stay in brand. You don't have to mix it up with other stuff. You don't have to take extra salts. It's really simple. So I'm seeing really good success with it. I trust it. Trust the formula that they're using. So Never Second. Yeah.
What was your
So it's kind of like the North Face, except it's the Neff Pace. Little play on words there. Yeah.
Did you teach PAC?
Oh, come see me after. We got this. We'll get a photo, we'll tag, and then we'll. Perfect. Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the talk.
Yeah, thank you.
For for me and a couple of our fellow riders here, it's going to be our first special half or full marathon. And since Monday, I have been suffering from thinking about it too much.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping past midnight. So I wonder, what did you do for your very first big race? How did you settle in? Because I'm going to be losing a lot of sleep. Did you do a quick recovery run, easy run to the kitchen, grab a serving of pasta, or what did you do for your first big run?
Yeah, I think there's just, the question is, a first-time marathoner, there's just a lot of anxiety and, excitement. Really what it is it's energy, it's excitement. So one, just kind of recognizing that, let's say you're on a scale of 0 to 10 of kind of like excitability, right? 0 is like you're dead asleep, you're probably dead. 10 is like you've had 20 Red Bulls and you're like freaking out, right? The best performance happens kind of like in that 5, right? And and I was feeling it just coming up here today. So like I had that kind of like, I went over the 5, just before. Got really, like the energy turned from like, I can do this to like, oh, I'm like shaky. Like, why am I shaky? Like I can do this, right? You got to like find a way to like, just kind of bring it back down a notch. Find things that relax you. One, just recognize it's okay. Like you have energy. Great, you're excited. You should be excited. You're gonna do your first half, your first full. Like that's amazing accomplishment. Yeah, give him a round of applause. Like you're about to start this journey of spending a lot of money for the rest of your life. And never being satisfied with whatever you run, because that's what just keeps driving us back, right? So just remember that like tomorrow's or Sunday's not your last. Okay, there's going to be other opportunities. You're going to learn a lot. What did I learn during those? I don't know. Don't drink too much water. I was like gushing water out before the race. Don't overhydrate. Just like I was saying, don't overdo anything. Just take it in. Try to be in the moment. Find things that relax you until then. You don't have to overthink it. Read through your race packet. Make sure you know what not to do. Yeah, where you have to be. Get there early. Stay warm. Yeah, I wasn't gonna really talk about the weather and everything. It's gonna be cold for sure, but don't throw away anything early in the race. That's what I'll say Sunday. You're gonna get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm nice and warm. I don't need these gloves and this jacket and all this, and then you're gonna turn a corner and you're gonna be like, I really want all that stuff back right now. So that's my one big tip for Sunday's cold. Yeah. All right, one more.
I missed, are you from Houston? And then how many days of the year do you train and run? Run almost every day?
Yeah, so I have a really long intro of where I've lived. It's confusing. Yeah. I'm Canadian, born in Scotland. Lived there like a month and then proceeded to live in like 30 other places growing up. I was loved, like I stayed with the same family throughout that, except for 1 year I went to boarding school. It was a good boarding school. If you want to know more, like Brooke was one of my athletes, was catching up. I launched a podcast with my wife this week, and we dive into all this stuff, like my life, like behind the scenes. Not that we thought it was like that interesting, but we kind of live a crazy life. We live right up in Richmond. We actually have 4 girls between the 2 of us. We live at an airport. The Trail Racing Over Texas company is housed in an aircraft hangar, and training is throughout the year pretty much. I do take a lot of breaks, but to answer the other part of your question, if you want to deep dive into my life, now we do make fun of the people that slide into the DMs with very, very inappropriate questions. So if you do, I mean, you're just going to end up on our podcast, and we're going to have a good laugh about it. So if you ask my weight or like anything else, hey, there's some good stuff on there. So the Neff pace, okay, the Neff pace, yeah, it's on Spotify, YouTube. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to kick it off with giving away an entry to the San Felipe Shootout, which is March 1st. Same day as the rodeo run. I know it's not ideal, but if you want to get off the road, kind of a slogan I've come up with for Trail Racing Over Texas, if you need to rejuvenate your running, especially after the Houston Marathon Sunday, it's beautiful. We have amazing state parks in this area that people don't even realize are within an hour drive of Houston, and that's really my goal, is to expose people to these beautiful places outdoors and off the road. So I want to thank Rise for having me, and everyone Janica, thank you so much, and Fleet Feet and everybody. Wishing you all the best on Sunday. I'll be at the expo and hanging out here, so yeah, I'm an open book. You can ask me just about anything after. All right, we have everyone got their numbers in the pot? Not yet. I want to do one. I'm going to do one. I'm going to kick it off. Just while I'm here.
He's going to do one. All right, perfect.
Does anybody not have a number?
Last chance to get it in. We'll do the rest of the raffle after this one, but after a few more words are said. We'll kick it off here. 996-0724. 0724. All right. I'll get your info and we'll...
Okay. Do I have to put my tickets somewhere?
No, you can.
Okay.
We believe you. All right. Thanks so much.
Yes.
All yours.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anybody need a ticket?
It's not
Does
hard.
anybody else need a ticket? Raise your hand. Because there's more stuff.